Gathered is one more final reminder, gentle reminder, if anybody has a phone, if we could please take a moment to turn on silent, not to disturb the sacred funeral service. Our service will begin today with a tribute from the Military Honor Guard.
On behalf of the President of the United States Army, and a grateful nation, please accept this flag as a symbol of our appreciation on loved one's honorable and faithful service.
Say thank you to the gentlemen from the Army for their beautiful tribute. Jewish funeral starts even before we can speak, before we can offer any type of words, prayers. We do a physical act. ancient tradition we know as Kriya. Kriya means to tear, also to announce. And that is when we tear a garment or a ribbon, we know that just like a fabric, clothing, you could have the best of tailors, but it's not quite the same. We know your family, the fabric of your family is not going to be the same. Maybe a little bit of a deeper concept is just like a person can take off their clothes, put on a different jacket, the person underneath remains the same. So too we believe that the neshama, the soul, Mordechai ben Moshe, Morton Sonny Rich, lives on with you and the family. Every time you do a mitzvah, every time a memory, it's just the outside that we're laying to rest. So I'm going to ask you please to rise. And we're going to say this blessing together, and then we're going to tear the... If you open the inside pamphlet of your service folder, we begin with the words of Tehillim, Psalm 23, which I'll first read in Hebrew and then we'll read it together in the English. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai Roi Lo Echsar Ben Osdeshe Yarbitzeni, Almei Menuchosi Nahaleni Nafshi Yeshovi Vencheni B'Ma'ag Leitzedek Laman Shemo, Gam Ki Elech B'Geitz Almavaz Lo Yirara Ki Ata Yimodi, Shiftecha Umishantecha Hemi Nachamuni Taroch Lefanai Shulcha Neged Sorai Tishanta Hashem and Roshi Kosir Vayai Achta V'Chesed Rifuni Kol Yemei Chayai V'Shavti V'Veis Adonai La'orach Yamim, together on the inside of the pamphlet. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley, the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. It's okay.
You texted what? Oh, you have it.
So we just read from King David. It's also customary just to word from his son, Shlomo Melech. We know from Ecclesiastes, L'kol zman v'es tachas hashemayim. There's a time for everything under heaven. There's a whole list of things that we do at different times. And he ends with, there's a time to keep silent and there's a time to speak. And so it's at this time that we're going to hear some words from the people that knew Mr. Morton Sonny Rich more than anybody. That would be his family and his loved ones. And so we're going to hear from several individuals, and we're going to start.
She'll give you a listen to Susie, Brooke's daughter.
We're going to start with Morton's daughter, Susie.
She'll hand you the list. Thank you. I'm here representing, I'm not going to cry. I am going to cry. The rich girls, my sisters, Mary and Laurie, and me, Dad's pride and joy. Thank you all so much for coming today to honor our dad, our hero, a giant among men. There aren't enough words to capture what a truly unique person he was, but I'll give it a try. Our dad had a great sense of humor, and occasionally, it must be said, a morbid one. If I ask, Dad, can you come to dinner on Tuesday? Or Dad, can you watch the kids over winter break? He'd say, sure, if I'm still here. Then he'd write it on his calendar, and I knew for sure that when the day rolled around, Dad would be here. He was the most here dad you could ever imagine. A hands-on dad far ahead of his time. For many years, he worked 2 jobs, but still had endless time and patience for bath time and bedtime routines. When my sisters and I figured out how annoying he found our favorite bedtime story, Mommy, buy me a China doll, we basically pranked him by asking for it night after night after night, just to hear him say, Nachama, which we found hilarious. And night after night after night, Daddy would read it to us. On Sundays, he would take us to his work, the store, to give Mom a day to herself. He gave the best hugs, but only if you wanted one. He made the best breakfasts, pancakes, salami omelets. And he listened like you were the most important person in the world. Dad was here for everything, for his kids and his grandkids and his great-grandkids, all the concerts and plays, all the operations, celebrations, and graduations, from preschool to grad school. It's important to know that being here for his family was a deliberate and determined choice. Dad's own beloved father had died when Dad was only 20. On the day I was born, Dad made the decision to quit smoking cold turkey. Every year on my birthday, we would celebrate another year of Dad's deciding to be here for us. We celebrated 60 times. So how long had he been smoking? If you asked him, he'd say he started when he was 10 years old, or 7, or 5. Have I mentioned our dad was prone to exaggeration? He was never just hungry, he was famished. He didn't just want to be tall, he wanted to be 7 feet tall. When he was 70, he liked to tell people he was 90. I still haven't figured that one out. As a result, lots of the things he said sounded unbelievable, but a surprising number of them actually checked out. Dad led a remarkable life. He was born in Philadelphia, and if you asked why Philadelphia, he'd say, because I wanted to be near my mother. His first language was Yiddish. He grew up poor but happy on the west side of Chicago, in the back of his parents' barber shop, back when a hot dog with everything cost a nickel, really. His bubby made matzo balls that would melt in your mouth, and she knitted socks with inside seams that felt like razor blades. He and his friends would steal potatoes. He survived polio. He never went to high school, but he ended up earning a master's degree. He left home at 15 to seek his fortune in California with his parents' blessing. At only 17, he somehow enlisted in the Army, where he transported troops across the Pacific during World War II. He studied acting at the Goodman Theater, where he befriended comedian Shelley Berman. He first laid eyes on Mom when they were in their 20s, despite having grown up in the same neighborhood and sharing many of the same friends. He fell in love with her instantly and proposed on Valentine's Day. Dad was deeply romantic, and that's no exaggeration. 1 month after we moved into our house in Skokie, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated. Riots broke out on the west side, and the store Dad co-owned with his best friend Jack burned down. With a young family to feed and a brand new mortgage, Dad went back to being a teacher. That was just one of the many hats he wore. He was a cherished son of Anna and Morris, a devoted brother to his big sister Rose, who took him everywhere she went, no matter what anyone said, including her friends. A loving husband to Sally for nearly 70 years. Adored father to Mary, Laurie, and me, his 3 little girls. Beloved father-in-law to Binyomin and John. Grandfather to Tony, James and Gittel, Danny and Kylen, Scott and Peri, Amy and Mickey, Aliza and Joseph, Hannah, Michaela and Abe and Shai, and great-grandfather to Bracha, Yoel, Noah, Levi, Eliana, Nava, Hollis, and Nesanel. What a crew. He was a brother-in-law, an uncle, a godfather, and a friend. An Army sergeant, a department store owner, and a Chicago public school English and drama teacher. A union member and a proud LGBTQ ally. A pinochle player, Bears fan, avid reader, poet, philosopher, speechmaker, storyteller, and lifelong learner. If Dad loved someone or something, it was with a passion. And literally, Dad wore so many hats. Always a creative and snappy dresser, he had a cap in every color and for every occasion. You could count on Sergeant Rich to wear a U.S. Army hat on Memorial Day, and Shurin Begora, Sonny O. Rich, would wear a green hat on St. Patrick's Day. When he came for dinner and my kids were home, he'd wear his Purdue hat and his Marquette hat at the same time. Grandpa didn't play favorites. But he definitely was a favorite. When he walked into places where he was a regular customer, like Wally's in Park Ridge or Morton Grove Jewelers, the staff's faces would light up on seeing him, and they would treat him like the king he was. Dad showed us how to live through his actions. He was a compassionate humanitarian who respected personal choice and treated all people with dignity. He loved being out and about, supporting his local community, and addressing the people he met by name. If you gave him good service, he was the world's most generous tipper, and I'm not exaggerating. He was the kind of person who made chocolate chip pancakes for the kids and plain pancakes for the dogs. I'm not convinced he even liked dogs, but they absolutely adored him. For sure, our dad was an original. He'd shovel 3 feet of snow in his bathrobe. Okay, my mom's bathrobe. If you went on a walk with him, you'd have to run to keep up. He'd eat peanut butter and pickled herring sandwiches and cherry cheese coffee cakes topped with a slice of lox. He never shouted. He just spoke in his normal dulcet tone. And he never stopped learning, defying the odds, and trying new things. At 98, he was on TikTok and Spotify. He passed his driving test. He beat 2 kinds of cancer. And he got his ear pierced. Even in his very last days, he had plans and schemes and big, big dreams. Dad and I both had vivid dreams, and we often talked about them to try to figure out what they might mean. He still smoked in his dreams after 60 years, and he would still dream about his own father for more than 70 years after he was gone. Standing here now, I finally know what that means. Dad, you were the best, most present father anyone could hope to have. And we can't wait to see you again in our dreams.
Thank you, Susie. Now we're going to hear from Morton's nephew, Marty Rossman.
I'm 1 inch taller than Susie. Thank you. Susie, that was beautiful. Uncle, we love you. I know you're watching us. And the first thing you would tell us is turn that frown upside down. Uncle always wanted every one of us to be happy. I know we're sad, and this is a sad occasion, but when I think of Unc, I only think of good things. Uncle led a great life, and he was the coolest. He was smart, he was witty, he was funny, he was caring, and he always knew what to say. So many times. One that always comes to mind was Susie, your John's wedding, when the rabbi was late. And Uncle has to come out in front of all these people and explain what was going on. And he did a wonderful job. He even made some comments to your parents that people from England, this is not how we usually operate. And then he said, now we'll drink and we'll marry later. He had an incredible memory, and he was always sharp. The fact that he was 98, and yet you never thought of him as that. He was just like 50 or 60. He was timeless. He was Uncle. I mean, who walked as much as Uncle? Who was always ready with a warm greeting? Even the few times that Uncle wasn't thrilled, he made it to be funny. One of the things I always remember is on holidays, Auntie would send him to get something in the basement. And he would disappear for like a really long time, long enough where you forgot that he had left, 20, 25 minutes. And he'd always come up empty-handed, never with the thing he was sent down for. And he said, why do you send me down there? And I would always bust out laughing. Nobody was cooler than Uncle, sporting a red beret, or a cool t-shirt, or a neat vest. Or the last couple of years, I would pick him up for lunch, and every time he had a new color of Skechers on. I mean, like you said, Susie, who gets their ears pierced at 98? That's so cool. But the extra special twinkle in my heart that I always have of Uncle is that he and my dad were best friends. True partners in crime. Yes, my mom and auntie were really close sisters. Well, my uncle and my dad had a bond like no other. So many stories and so many happenings and so many memories with the two of them together. Yes, often involving alcohol, which to me is even better. But I cannot think of my dad for very long without thinking of my uncle. And for a long, long, long time after my dad passed, no one missed him more than Uncle. Well, now my dad and Uncle are together again, and by now well past their first bottle of Crown Royal, and they're both looking down at me right now and saying, all right, move along, enough. So, Unc, you are a celebration of life and love, and I celebrate you and love you so much.
Thank you, Marty. We're now going to hear from Morton Sonny, Binyomin, Babendir.
Such beautiful words conveyed by Susie and Marty, and hopefully my words support some of the things that they shared. First, we want to talk about, in this week's Parsha, we have passing of two of the greatest leaders of the Jewish people. Both Miriam and Aaron passed away. And there is a Rashi that says the passing of a righteous individual is like an atonement for the generation. And they both died by a kiss from Hashem. And I think that's how my father-in-law passed away peacefully in his sleep. He wanted to go in our house in a comfortable setting, surrounded by his loved ones, and he got his wish. What we hear about the passing of Miriam and Aaron is two of the greatest miracles occurred through them. With Miriam, they had the supply of water for 40 years in the wilderness. And with the passing of, and with Aaron, it was in his merit that the clouds of glory, the protection that they had in the wilderness, was in his merit. And unfortunately, the Jewish people for 40 years, they didn't understand or appreciate the significance and how these two great people provided for their needs for 40 years. I've known my father-in-law for 40 years, and I want to say that I hope that he understood my appreciation, my admiration. He was one of my role models. I want to ask him forgiveness for anything I might have said or done that didn't show him proper respect. So the acronym we have that we'll share is DAD, D-A-D. In my mind, the D stands for dedication. He was one of the most loyal people that I've ever seen in my life. As Susie and Marty both shared, family always came first. He was always present. He was always supportive. And he always encouraged every single person, no matter what they needed. Next came the friends that he surrounded himself with, the Romeos. He was just a great friend, and I miss all of his friends. Uncle Koki, buried over there, Selwyn. These were great people. And then also his profession, being a Chicago public school teacher in an area where many of the children were underprivileged, and he loved these children, his students, went fishing with them, anything that he could do to show his dedication. The A stands for articulate. He was able to connect with every single person in a genuine way, and not just sound bites, but able really to show a genuine interest in every single person. And I think this came through with what Susie was saying, just the people in the stores, the waiters, whoever it is, he would connect with every single person. And then the D also for being dapper. He was just an amazing dresser with the suit and the tie and the kerchief and in any type of color. And then as time went on and he wasn't wearing formal wear, it was the orange cap and the t-shirts and either the sweats or the shorts. But he always was specific in what he was wearing, and he really just made an impression on so many people. I'm so fortunate to have him as a father-in-law, and the family should be comforted.
Thank you, Binyomin. Now we're going to hear from Morton's son-in-law, John. Son-in-law, John, please.
Thank you guys all for coming again. When you get married, you get your spouse's parents as a package deal. For me, when I married Susie, it was a fantastic bonus. And I could not have wished for a better father-in-law. He was always there. He always showed up. He was always willing to listen, always schlepping, always taking care of everyone, and generous, always slipping you a 20. At first, I was a stranger to the family, not only as a new guy dating the youngest of 3 daughters, but I also brought along with me cultural differences, like my nationality and unfamiliar religious customs. However, it was not long before I felt part of the family, and that was in large part due to my father-in-law's warmth, humor, and irreverence. He was a kind and a mostly patient role model. He taught me a great many things about being a husband and a father. Like, if you go down to the basement and leave the vacuum running, you can get away with watching an entire period of basketball without being perceived as shirking your responsibilities. As others have mentioned, he was a great lover of food. He loved ethnic and spicy combinations. He and his friends, as Brian mentioned, had a kind of a dinner club that would meet and eat out together. It was called Romeo, which stood for Real Old Men Eating Out. And they took it very seriously and had silk jackets made with the name embroidered. Sadly, he outlived all of his friends, but the bonus for me was that I often became his lunch or dinner partner. He was a cultural everyman. I've never met a Jewish person who loved St. Patrick's Day more, and every year he insisted we go out for Guinness and fish and chips, but only on the actual day. His flair for the dramatic arts meant he was an incredible extemporaneous speaker. He gave many poignant, funny, and clever speeches at all occasions, and apparently delivered all off the cuff with no notes. During his toast at our wedding, he said he was sorry for taking up arms against me and my people in the Revolutionary War. I was looking forward to his speech at my daughter's weddings, but now we will just have to imagine what he would have said. We know from his speeches they would have come eloquently from his heart and would have been delivered with a wink and a twinkle in his eye. Go forth and foliate, he said at our wedding. In another part of his toast, he told me that I was lucky because my dad's 6'3" and him 5'1". Together meant I now not had just one, but 1.5 fathers. But he was not half a dad to me, though. He was the real thing, and I was privileged to call him Dad. He may have been small in stature, but he was truly a giant of a man. Dad, I miss you already.
Thank you, John. We're now going to hear from James Babendir, followed by Scott Babendir, and then Mickey Hahn.
Vicious, Tony, Scott, and Danny, some of the funniest people I know. My grandfather wore many hats. This is one of them. Also, I was told to speak for no more than 3 minutes, and I have no idea how long this is. Webster's dictionary defines grandpa as the father of one's father or mother. And grandpa could not have exemplified that any better. In my case, he happens to be the father of my mother. And I'm pretty sure all my siblings and first cousins feel the same way about him. He actually went by a lot of names. People who send him mail addressed it to Morton. I've even heard people refer to him as Uncle. I don't fully understand the etymology of that one, but if you wanted to really connect with him, you called him Grandpa. His daughters clearly understood that. Bubby would call him Sonny. Maybe that's why they were always yelling. I never once heard him yell at anyone who called him Grandpa. I'm sure that people will have some nice things to say about him, but I'll present a slightly different take. Grandpa was super strict. One of my earliest memories was that one time that we almost didn't get to go to Chuck E. Cheese. And there were countless times that instead of giving us an immediate yes, he would defer us to ask Bubby. Grandpa made it hard for us to experience adversity, and he made school very tough. If I was ever sick, he'd come and pick me up and bring me to his house. And that often accompanied a trip to Ken's for lunch. Magically, I'd usually be better by the time lunch was over. I found it really hard not to be sick more often. Most people's grandparents teach them skills like cooking or sewing. Grandpa taught me to gamble. It wasn't an issue at first. We'd play cards using my rules, so he'd never win. Then we'd play casino for 5 cents a point. I was just a few years old at this point, so you'd think this would have been my first income. But Grandpa also gave me an unreasonable sense of entrepreneurship and his signature encouragement when I had the grand idea one afternoon to sell rocks to my neighbors. My rock empire never did take off. But as we got older, we got to experience Grandpa's fully competitive side. You were either with him or against him, and you only knew which side you were on by throwing aces. The game of choice, pinochle, was too intense to teach his daughters, so he waited for his grandsons to pass down his hobby. While he might have taken pride in playing his childhood game with his descendants, I took pride in knowing that I made around $50 over the last few years. Yes, the stakes were now higher. And yes, you were never required to pay your losses. Grandpa covered all debts. What kind of life lesson is that? At every card game, there were TV tables containing chips, peanuts, chocolate, another kind of chocolate, drinks. Grandpa didn't care about the health aspects of what he fed us. And this is all on top of the 3-course meal Bubby would make for the special occasion. The special occasion here being that his family just showed up. It wasn't necessarily any holiday. For holidays, Grandpa set unrealistic expectations for family events. Passover, Thanksgiving, Hanukkah, Mother's Day, Father's Day, July 4th, Memorial Day, also St. Patrick's Day, because that was always around their birthdays. These were expected to be attended and enjoyed, and growing up, they were always at his house. I can't say whether we were always on our best behavior. More accurately, we were on our behavior. Grandpa was never resting when we came over. He was always hosting, entertaining, and having a good time. He then supported our bad habits of not wanting to leave and would offer to drive us home much later at night, with no clear responsibility for how tired we must have felt the next day. Grandpa was always too nice to us. From an early age, I knew if I wanted to get a certain answer, he was the person to ask. There was also no other place in the world that would provide you with a bag of chocolate on your way out just for showing up. Grandpa had a terrible taste in books. He read Shakespeare, and not just for school assignments, like for fun. But we did both share an interest in Dave Barry. He was the only person I know who shares that interest. I got a copy of his most recent book several months ago and was excited to show it to him. He borrowed it that night and called me the next morning with his assessment. To this day, I still haven't started reading it. If Grandpa didn't like it, I knew I wouldn't like it either. Grandpa also gave terrible advice. When I started reading Dave Barry and then writing emails about my adventures in college, he'd reply and say things like, "Maybe you should become a writer." I can't imagine what coffee shop I'd be working at today if I listened to him. He was also really bad with money. I called once after meeting with the finance department in my school. After taking out all the loans I could, I was still several $1,000s short of being able to afford tuition. Grandpa immediately agreed to help. Grandpa's check is what ensured I could graduate and ultimately find my non-coffee related job. But his emails to me would always end with a consistent theme, which nicely reflected his approach to family. I'm most happy when all my children are within reach. Hurry home, be safe, and we will see you soon. While I unfortunately won't be able to fulfill that last part anymore, I take solace in knowing that while unbelievably unrealistic, he got his family to do just that. And for most of his life, his children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren all lived within reach. And I know we will continue to find those opportunities to celebrate together because that's what he wanted. And in a way, if you think about it, I guess he was a pretty good grandpa after all.
Most of the people here had the experience of Grandpa walking up, and obviously no notes, as Uncle John mentioned, and all of us would just like feel this buzz because there were people who knew him and there were people who didn't know him, and no matter what, everyone was just like smiling, staring with their mouth open in a smile, appreciating his warmth, wit, and wisdom. And everyone who had any relationship with him would just feel like such immense pride. It's like, that's my person. Like I knew that he was going to knock him dead, and every single time he did. Speaking right now should not be very difficult because for the last 20 years, whenever Grandpa did or said anything which he thought was profound, he would say, "Make sure you write that down and say it at my eulogy." I looked at some of the things that he had said and decided against going with, "In order to be a man, you must eat a bushel of dirt." So he wasn't much help in that department. The last time that Grandpa and I went for a walk, we were leaving his house last summer. So, we bought lunch, slipped me the necessary $20 bill, and he's like, "Don't thank me, just make sure you mention it at the funeral, talk about how great of a guy I was." I was like, "Grandpa, like really, like what do you want like at your eulogy?" And he said, after thinking, "Well, there should be a tittering of laughter." So everyone's doing a great job tittering so far. One of the walks that we went on, we walked from his house to my parents' house, which, if you're familiar, is almost directly due east. So we walked up to Lake, which is 4 miles north, and we were passing a Dunkin' Donuts parking lot, and the driver pulled out of the parking lot and hit him. So Grandpa's knocked down on the ground, and the driver comes out, and he's this like 6'4", 225 finance bro-y kind of guy, and he's just white in the face because he just saw that he hit a 150-year-old man who's now on the ground, and he comes out just like shook, and he's like looks at Grandpa, and Grandpa gets up and says, "What are you doing? You hit the hell out of me!" The guy still like white in the face, and his grandpa's like, "Just watch where you're going." We walk off, and Grandpa's this real scary guy, and he says to me, "Don't tell Bubby." And there were many instances of not telling Bubby over the years. Usually whenever I would go to Grandpa to just hear some stories about teaching and he was my role model for as a teacher, showing everyone showing dignity to everyone. His stories invariably were, and I went to the toughest looking guy of the group, and I took his boombox and I threw it down the stairs, and I said, "If you want to fight, meet me in the parking lot." I'm like, "Grandpa, these were middle schoolers." Could take it down a notch. Grandpa would say, like, we went on the camping trip that I would always take everyone on, and the students would say, "Mr. Rich, is it okay if we smoke?" And I would say, "Guys, Grandpa was really good at saying no." Say, "I don't know, I would get in trouble maybe." And Bubby would just say, like, "Just no, they know right from wrong. They don't, Ma, what are you talking about? They don't know what right from wrong. They're in a hole in the head. I'll give you a hole in the head. You know." That's usually how that ended up going. As real advice, Grandpa's whole outlook, and everyone who knew him can attest, he would say, "Scotty, just try to find the people who are on the outside and bring them in. Let them be on the inside, looking out for a change. Everyone just wants to be accepted, and just if you can find people and help them feel accepted, then you're doing your job." He possibly gave that over to his students. As James mentioned, we only learned one thing from him, and that was, learned casino. We learned pinochle from him. As my teacher of pinochle, I can say he was the most abusive teacher that I've ever experienced. You hell hath no fury like anyone who is drawing on the score sheet during a game, or touching someone else's tricks, or if you play a card and you're obscuring the card only slightly. I don't think that I have ever been yelled at as much in any game ever as much as Grandpa yelled at me during pinochle. I know that Grandpa thought that I was a formidable opponent. There was a time that he was at the hospital, whatever. Sometimes he just ends up at the hospital, and he was hooked up to something that measured his heart rate, and we were playing some claviage, and I was kicked out of the room because it's like I kept dealing him bad hands, and his heart rate went from his normal resting heart rate of like 35 to spiked all the way up to 90. With playing pinochle, I knew that if he was yelling at me, that it was like the highest form of flattery possible. I know that, as Grandpa in his later years was really just looking for someone who could be like a friend, somebody who could see eye to eye with, and thankfully a lot of people were able to provide that. And the fact that he was able to yell at me all those times helped me feel like, I really am able to fulfill some sort of need for him. I know that he looked at me as being somewhat intelligent. He would often remark, it's like, "Scotty, I know that you're bright. Look who you chose as grandparents." And I would always remark that he was one of my first choices as a grandparent. I said that pinochle was the only time that he ever yelled at me. It's not true. When I was 5 years old, Grandpa made the grave error after I tripped him when he was holding my sister, and he lost about a pint of blood. He yelled at me, and we never spoke of it until I was 18. And in my birthday card, he filled both sides, apologizing, saying, like, "Scotty, like, I don't know what I was doing. I looked down at you, and you looked at me with those sad eyes, and you just didn't understand, and I'll never yell at anyone ever again." That was usually the feeling that I had with Grandpa. The feeling that there's nothing that he would ever do to ever hurt me, and that he is taking to his grave that he yelled at me. I forgave him every single time he brought it up, which is often, and he refused for me to accept his apology. The way that I looked at Grandpa was as my favorite person. It is a lot of people saying role model. I didn't have to think for a second when somebody said, "Who's your role model?" That it was Grandpa. The first time that I held either of my daughters, and I held them close to my heart, and I closed my eyes, and I thought of a picture that I saw of Grandpa holding me as a baby, and his eyes were a little bit furrowed, like he was trying to transmute all the love that he felt in his heart into me as he was holding me. And that is the love that I try to give over to my daughters. He's the model for how I'd like to relate to them. There's something else that he wrote to me when I was 18. After high school, it was the longest I'd ever been away from my grandparents, and I was not sure if I would be able to keep going on, not knowing whether I'd be able to see them again because I was out of state. And I spent a day just writing up my thoughts for Grandpa and Bubby. So 18-year-old me wrote, "Every bone and sinew in my body knows that your love for me will never be extinguished. It's one of the few things that I'm 100% sure about. This is what you champion more than anyone I've ever encountered, expressing your love to those you love, making them know how you feel about them, making sure you feel loved." Grandpa, in his response to that email, wrote, "I thought I had to die before someone showered me with so much love. Scotty, I will always be there for you no matter what the situation. My precious grandson, I will love you forever. Go Green Bay." He's able to change hats depending on the person. "May Hashem always watch over you, and may you always enjoy the best of health and happiness forever. I miss you. I love you, and I can't wait to see you. All my love always, Grandpa. Grandpa, we will spend the rest of our lives trying to do for others what you have done for us, making sure that they feel the love that you have for us."
It's kind of hard to be the last one up here and have all the words taken, such as role model, tittering of laughter, but I'll do my best. 8.5 years ago, I met the man I am privileged to call my grandfather. I was loved by him wholly and immediately, and I built a connection with him unlike any I have ever known. There's too much to say about a man like him. Everyone in this audience can probably speak for a long time, recounting memories, speaking of his character, speaking of his idiosyncrasies and his relationship with Bubby and all the beautiful things that make him who he was. But words and stories aren't able to actually capture him. He was a genuine light. He's a man who radiated hope, exuded trustworthiness, encouraged genuine human connection, and had endless amounts of love to give, not just to those he loved, but to everyone around him. His smile was infectious, his charm was palpable, and his beautiful soul was apparent to all. Having not grown up with my own biological grandparents, I didn't understand how impactful the role a grandfather can have in life until joining my wife's family. Despite not having a blood relationship with Grandpa, I was his grandson, and he was my grandpa. He loved me, he cherished me, and he so fiercely believed in me, and that belief bleeds into my daily life and ambitions. So I don't have childhood memories with him. I didn't get to have sleepovers at his house, or travel or go on trips with him. I did get yelled at learning pinochle, and Grandpa, I'm sorry for the times that I didn't lead the lone ace. He didn't pick me up from school when I wasn't feeling well. I didn't grow up hearing his speeches at family dinners. I didn't get to have him as a kid in the same capacity as his blood grandchildren. But I know now that I had a grandfather, I just hadn't met him yet. As an adult, I've enjoyed playing pinochle with you, seeing you wear my hand-be-up clothing, pulling off my outfits way better than I ever could. I'm so grateful to you for giving me my mother-in-law, my aunts, my siblings, my cousins. Your legacy of love lives through the values you've exemplified. I've had the honor of living with Grandpa since April and being actively involved in the final stage of his life. I saw the ups and the downs. I saw the pain he felt, but I saw him throughout it all relish the time he had with his family. I sat with him through tears of sorrow, but also many tears of joy. And I'm grateful for every single moment I had with him, but it wasn't enough. It will never be enough. I love you, Grandpa. Thank you for welcoming me to your family and being the best grandfather I could have asked for. I hope to be and live as half the person you were.
Friends, if we could please rise for the memorial prayer, we're going to invite Joseph Roth to come forward and say the traditional prayer in Hebrew, after which we'll do it in English. You could find that on the inside portion of your folder.
El moli rachamim shechein bamreimim amsei menucha nechona kanfei ashchina b'malois kedoshim atarim kizay harakia mazirim es tishmas Mordechai ben Moshe shalach l'olamo bavor she'anachnu mispalnim b'razkaros nishmaso v'gan Eden tei menuchaso l'chein bal rachamim Yasireu b'seiser knafav lo'elamim V'yitzror b'tzorah chayim es nishmaso Adonai hu nachlaso V'yanuach b'shalom mishkavo V'noimar Amen.
Together in the English, O God full of compassion, thou who dwellest on high, grant perfect rest beneath the sheltering wings of thy presence among the holy and pure who shine as the brightness of the firmament unto the soul of Morton Sonny Rich, who has gone unto eternity. Lord of mercy, bring him under the cover of thy wings, and let his soul be bound up in the bond of eternal life. Be God's possession, and may his repose be peace. And let us all say amen. Friends, you may be seated. Some of you know when you go to a cemetery, one of the unusual sights that you might see if you look down is you'll see wedding invitations. And sure enough, there is an ancient custom that we have that people bring their wedding invitations and they put them at the graveside, at the stone of a grandparent. Very odd. But we know, our tradition tells us, that under the chuppah, when a couple is getting married, they're not there by themselves. They're there because of the people that gave them the strength to be there, the people that gave them all the values, and they're actually channeled and they're present. And so we want to make sure that they know that they're welcome. And it's actually in this week's parsha as well, when we know that the king, Balak, he hires Bilam to curse the Jewish people. And he was a terrible cursor, because what came out of his mouth was the most famous of all, or one of the most famous phrases we know is Matovu Alecha Yaakov Mishkan Osecha Yisrael. We sing it on the way into synagogue. How goodly, how beautiful, how pleasant are your tents, O Jacob. And the commentators say that this tent of Jacob, this Mishkan Osecha Yisrael, isn't just a building, it's not just a tent, it's actually a home, it's a family. And so we look back and we know what he's really blessing us with is the beautiful home that we have as a family. And of course we have to say thank you, and we have to recognize where that comes from. And you all did such a beautiful job of sharing those memories here, and I just felt it yesterday in the kitchen together with everybody, how much love and jokes you're all a part of him, and he's obviously clearly going to be living on through you. And so it is a moment where we say goodbye, but we also hope that as we enter into the next phase of these new tents, these new families that are going to be being built, that he's going to act as a gutta beta, an intermediary, an angelic guide. That's my simple blessing. So friends, in just a moment, we're going to take part in what's considered one of the biggest mitzvot, one of the greatest acts that we can do as Jews, the mitzvah of kfurah, the mitzvah of burial. And you'll note there's a couple things that we do it a little differently at a Jewish burial, and you'll see it next to the casket, you'll see a mound of earth. And rather than do the thing that would make the most sense, which is have a truck pour the earth in, we're actually going to physically take part, each one of us, to the extent of our ability, to do this great act of covering and placing earth into the grave. Some people may know that there's a custom not to hand the shovel from person to person, but rather let each person on their own accord. Everybody had their own unique relationship. We also know that we don't just do it once. We try to do a minimal of 3 times to show that the fullness of our heart, the fullness of intent, even though it's a mitzvah that's not easy to do, we do it nonetheless because we love Morton, and we want to make sure that we do it ourselves to the best of our ability. And some people have an unusual custom. You'll see the first one they do upside down. Again, not very good shoveling. And the answer is that, well, there's many answers. One, that it's a little different. But an idea that I heard recently is the world that we're living in is upside down. And the world where Morton, maybe he already was living for a while in his own world, but we know for sure now he's going to be in a world where things are right side up. And we hope and we pray that maybe as he continues in his ascent, he'll be able to let us in on that secret, let us in on that making things right side up. So friends, after the cemetery staff has removed all their equipment, we're going to invite everybody to form 2 lines to place their measures of earth into the grave. While we do that, there is a very nice sized audience, and on behalf of the family, I want to thank everybody for joining us here. For those who are online, I am going to put the register book out. If anybody wants to take a moment to sign in, you could also do so on your phones with the QR code inside the pamphlet. And I will put that over here for people to sign in. It's not too hot out. We are going to try to do the entire mitzvah ourselves. I believe in you. And Morton certainly did. So let's try to do that. If you do once, you could come back around. We have water, and if anybody needs to have a drink, it is not forbidden. You're allowed to drink as you're being active and it's sunny out. Upon return from the cemetery, the family will be sitting Shiva at the Babendir residence in Skokie, 8620 Hamlin. Those times are available on the funeral home website, as well as the folders that you received on the way into the cemetery. Upon conclusion of the burial, we're going to return to the canopy where we're going to have Kaddish be recited. So please make sure once we finish, you come back, because we're going to do a final prayer of Kaddish. friends, you can either use the shovel or the pail. No, it makes no difference, whatever you feel comfortable. Certainly it might find it easier to use the pail, that's okay too.
Can't run my decisions. It's better to be the funniest accountant than the least funny comedian. I'm very happy with that.
Good point.
And I know a bunch of accountants too. Yeah, I stand out at work. If I was in like a comedy circuit, I'd be the worst thing. No, it's not, right?
I don't think so, but you do stand out at work.
The point is you stand out.
Yes.
Thank you very much. This, I got like $2 winners of DraftKings now. It's like an awful weight. It doesn't even tell me. It's just like 10 to months. It's like the promo's like 10. It's like 5? Nope. 4? Nope. 3? No. Yeah. Take 50 cents to put a $2 wager. That's really what they should do. If you give them 50 cents, that's a $2 wager.
What?
All good. Start talking to the mic. Alright, I'll go first. Here's my email.
They were separated.
Yeah, think about that. I know. I don't think it matters. Is it? It's like
I didn't try it first. Oh yeah. How it stands with the tradition because we did get them. We have we totally got rid of it. All the more reason we should work on it's okay. But we'll probably maybe what do you think you would want? Cranberry jam. Oh, I'm sorry. Your mom read them. I would like virgin blood. We're gonna
TV show, Sonny for
Why can't you just do that? Why can't we just do that?
I
don't know. I think it's easy now.
Well, Eliana goes to stop working with you. Or rather, stop working with Anna. Oh, yes. So, because we heard that Eliana
and I've been thinking about it, it should also work as it should also usually like after you the second.
I think they just like know how to push each other's buttons with that creativity system we have. So yeah, I mean, but they're also two. Yes and no. I think she is less chaotic. Still very chaotic. They're both high personality, very like very loud and outspoken. But Nava has some Scott's weirdness of like being silly and goofy and like doing funny calls and whatever else. And Nava and then Nava has a little bit more of that like his soft side of wanting the snuggles and the closeness. But like from specific people. So they're both like a very real mix of us. But that they make you see outwardly is much more person. The good in them is Scott. The good in them is Scott. we're very delinquent on either coming to visit, having you over, going out for a meal or something. I know that it's been a weird.
Are you getting ready?
Yeah, somehow. Yeah, I think. Well, it's only been a few days, but Eliana and Nava go over to like Roth and Noah's house. We needed to like on Mo Shabbos and we see the cousins.
Okay, before I guess just came with us on the way here, so and what are you guys?
We were there on Wednesday. We were there for about
We were talking about this.
just together on Sunday for a mix of Father's Day and there's my mom's birthday. We're eating at the same time. Family together. I would love to. Yeah, no, I need to do better. The mother Hollis got. Let's talk about the I run the calendar. Just like on your calendar.
Your mom and I were always.
I mean, listen, Brooke knows well enough to say, let me consult with Grandma. She has the calendar. She has the power. Very true. I want to see it. Do you have a 2-bedroom? Very nice. What's the place called? Carrington. Oh, those are snatched. That's like a nice. How do you feel about the food? You have like a kitchenette, but how do you feel about the food? Do you have any favorites yet from the menu? Wow. Yeah.
I think we're going outside. Okay.
Yeah, of course. Good. Okay. Wonderful. Do you know anyone who also can wear it for you? That's nice. Is that like kind of the
Oh,
of course. Yeah. What's happening with the building? It was officially sold and like, yeah, okay. Are you guys still renting it or no? Okay. Where's the new building going to be? No, I don't. Church and
I mean,
no, not you. No, but you said you were there.
I was like, that is, I would have no
We'll see you
That goes.
he found or his eye contact or whatever it was. Like these people's long bar,
I hope
his mother, my father.
I'm the baby. Here we go. I think she's
Yeah, that is. Son-in-law with two of their kids is driving, is coming here. He'll be here by the week. They have an iPhone.
I didn't even say hi to you at the show.
And they're actually not
much better around.
There's nothing in Texas.
Wasn't official.
Neither their house nor yours. So they can't do anything.
Well, someone
okay.
I was earlier.
How you doing?
Kieran quit his job. Traditional. Family for someone to quit their job. So they're all coming
Do you have like spray? You can just spray her.
But they will be staying.
Oh yeah, and then a lot of those places are vertical living, or
I'm really like back and forth on the drive. I gotta do that.
They're coming in advance.
and they can do that.
Yeah. It's just there's a lot of that. Yeah, what we do is we're gonna do something.
Right.
Do we want to do it all guys? It would be nice to.
I know their son
Is right. It is. You know, the house is 100.
What to then be like?
Oh, we should go to that.
Really?
Right. The next person who sits down, let that
But she calls her dad. How did she call for Tony? Spotted. You sounded so much like Auntie Mario.
he like pulled off his sock yesterday, sucking on it, so then
Right.
picked him up with one sock and like
One more time.
Right.
yeah,
Very
Well, not at the same time, but once in a while. You had known each other before, like they had already been married.
So you saw a couple weeks ago.
I love her or whatever. She needs like an emotional support staff. We were like trying to figure it out. Kylen got something for child. But I really do think we have to it looks like on the Bayla more job.
But it's better than that's something.
I mean, I'm not going to take it back. It's more saying like,
They wanted some of those things.
Okay, friends, if I could ask everybody to begin gathering over on this side for the final Kaddish. Again, as we finish closing the grave, if I could ask everyone to please make their way for our final prayer, the mourner's Kaddish. I'm first going to say a short chapter of Psalms. Shir Lamala is the sign El Haram Anya Vayizrim. Ezri Mimad and Oisei Shemaim Rat Aitim Lamot Regacha Al Yinam Shomrecha. Hine Lo Yonam V'Lo Yishan Shemer Yisrael L'nei Shomrecha. Adonai Tzilcha Yad Yimenecha Yoimam HaShemesh Lo Yakeka V'Yirech Balayla Adonai Yishmorcha Mikora. Yishmor as Nafshecha Adonai Yishmor Teisecha Teisecha V'Echa Me'at Yad Elam. We're just going to give a couple moments to make the proper tzuras hakever, the outline of the grave, after which we'll be offering these words of Kaddish. Anybody who is currently in mourning can join in the sisters as we say this prayer. Kaddish, as we know, is the singular prayer that connects us to our loved ones who have passed, and there is no mention of death. Rather, it talks about the beauty, the wonder of the world. And we know the reason the world was so wonderful and so great is because we had people like your dad. And so as we say this prayer, and as you get accustomed even more over the following year to say this prayer, you can always look back and think about how the world is yet again beautiful. From everything that we do on his behalf going forward, we accept his mission to continue making the world a beautiful place. So if everybody has the back of the folder, you could see we're going to go this way. We're just going to, yeah. If everybody wants to turn maybe a little towards my colleagues over here. We're going to say the Kaddish is on the back together with me. Yiskadal v'yiskada shemei b'yama divrach kirusei v'yamlich malchus b'chayeichon u'v'yomeichon u'b'chayei d'chol beis Yisrael ba'agala u'b'zman kariv v'yimru Yehei shmei rabba mevarach le'olam u'mei olmaya Yisparach v'yishtabach v'yispar v'yisramam v'yisnaseh Yishadar v'yisaleh v'yisalal Kidusha Brich Le'ela Birchasa Veshiros V'nechem Asa V'imru Amen Yehi Rabba Min Shemaya Chaim Ya'kol Yisrael V'imru Oseh Shalom B'mramav Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu Ya'kol Yisrael V'imru Amen. May he who makes peace in high, now together with Morton's help, please make peace. We desperately need it down below. And let us all say amen. So friends, at this time I'm going to ask everybody besides Mr. Rich's daughters, if everybody else can form two rows, shoulder to shoulder, a double aisleway facing each other, through which the mourners will enter through as we offer them the ancient words of comfort as we welcome them into the period we now call Shiva. So once again, everybody could form a double aisleway just over there towards the road, shoulder to shoulder facing each other. At this time, we'll ask the mourners to come through. Let's give them one moment. And as they pass by, we can offer them words letting them know they're not alone. Repeat after me. Hamakom yinachem etchem bitoch sha'ar avelei Tzion v'Yerushalayim. Together in English, may God console you with all who mourn in Zion and Jerusalem. Thank you, friends. This does conclude the service. You may return to your cars.